What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Agents to Owners podcast. I am really looking forward to sitting down with our next guest today. With me, I have Don Chapin, president of Michigan Insurance Group. He is a public speaker, a business coach. Don, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. I will clarify. Everyone always says Champine.
Champine, I'm sorry,
Champine.
man.
No worries. No worries. I hear it all the time, but figured at least I tell you so you
I
wouldn't say.
should have
"Why didn't
asked
you
that
tell me?"
before while we were busy chopping it up.
No worries, Brent.
So thanks for being here. Really excited to have you. As we are just kind of talking off air, I think we have a lot of things in common. I've heard you on other podcasts in the past. Love your positivity, your mindset, your humbleness. So I'm excited to get to know you a little better today. Like we usually do, why don't you give us a little bit of background on Don, how you found the insurance space, and bring us up to today.
Sure. So, like most who enter in the insurance industry, not all, but most, it was by accident. I found an opportunity to get involved in commercial insurance for a larger agency. And I did that for, I think, just under 3 years and wasn't a real good employee. I started figuring out the sales part and started finding some success. And, I was young and arrogant and really thought I knew better than most. So I started trying to push in my own direction, which didn't sit well with, the powers that be. So we ended up parting ways, and I started my own agency. Well, you can already see where that could be a problem. So if I'm brand new in the industry and maybe a little bit out of my league, I struggled. I didn't know a lot about the industry. I knew a little bit about sales, and I knew nothing about owning a business. But here I am out on my own trying to figure it out. So it was a comedy of errors, if you will, and I figured out that one of the things I had to straighten out right from the get was I had to get some knowledge about the industry and really get knowledgeable about insurance, because passing the licensing exam doesn't mean that you actually know insurance. No. It means that you hit a bar that they set, and that's it. And then from there you had to learn. And so I spent a lot of time becoming a student in the industry, trying to make sure that I had a clear understanding of the insurance products that I was trying to sell and how they interacted with the different industries that I was working with, because in commercial insurance, they all work a little bit differently depending on the industry you're working on. So it was just a complicated process, and especially to do it on my own. We didn't have access to a lot of things that current agents have. The information sharing, the podcasts that are talking about all these things. It didn't exist back when I started, 22 years ago. And so I figured out a lot by trial and error. And then, the next steps were trying to build a team, which I can talk a little bit about the struggle later on, but that's hard in and of itself, just trying to figure that piece out. And you learn it as you go, which isn't always the best practice, obviously. And that brings us to today. We have a team of 10. We have a location in Muskegon, Michigan, and then one in Grand Haven, Michigan. And our goal right now is we are targeting we want to build to a $3 million revenue agency. Mm-hmm. So in order to do that, we know we need to add more people and consolidate some of our processes and our practices to ensure that we're all pushing in the right direction as efficiently as possible. And through that process of almost 25 years of industry experience, I've also gained a lot of knowledge that I can share with other agencies. So I've been trying to do that as much as possible to help others not struggle as much as I struggled when I first started. And some of that was my own fault, because even though there weren't all the resources available that there are now, there are resources available, but I chose not to follow them for one reason or another. So,
yeah, I think I was the same. I certainly didn't look very hard, because I think that's one of my blind spots, is that I think that I can figure everything out.
I feel that in my core.
But let's go back a little bit to 02. Do you recall what were some of your bigger struggles and bigger challenges when you got started and when you were starting to develop as a business owner?
Well, when I started in the industry, obviously I was surrounded by a team of knowledgeable and competent people. And then when I went off my own, it was me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't very knowledgeable and I wasn't very competent. But I was the only sounding board I had. So that was, I think, the biggest struggle. Is I was out of my depth so much. I had a passion to find a path to success. And so by that and some dumb luck, I was able to figure it out. But it took me a lot longer than it should have. And,
Yeah.
that's on me. The other struggle I think was, a real basic struggle, finding carriers.
Mm.
I thought that would be easy. I was fairly good at sales. I mean, again, I wasn't great, but I was fairly good, competent at sales, and I could do well and I could talk to people. And so that created opportunities. And I thought that alone would get carriers interested. But man, the idea that someone has to approve you to sell their product and help them grow was kind of new to me. Like,
Yeah.
I got to prove myself first before I can sell your stuff. Okay, how do I do that? Well, I can't sell anything if I don't have any markets. So what do I do? And so that was a very, very big obstacle to overcome. And I managed to do it, but it was not easy. It's not for the faint of heart, for sure.
So you went out on your own before you had any markets.
I had no markets. I had no book that I could take with me. I had no plan and limited industry experience. So yeah, it was, again, I said comedy of errors. I say it as clear as possible. And I could probably explain some of those sleepless nights or weeks or whatever they were, because it makes sense when someone says, well, you didn't have any idea what you're doing. Nope. No idea whatsoever.
Did you join a network, or did you eventually just gather some markets?
I did not join a network
Okay.
until about 12 years later. And I joined the SIAA
Okay.
because I was commercial only and I had the opportunity to jump into some personal lines market, and I needed to provide the new team that I was going to grow personal lines opportunities. And so I was able to gain that through that network. The focus that I had was still going to be commercial, so I didn't want to learn the personal line side of things. I wanted to make sure I had a team that could do that, and then make sure they had access to markets. So that's the route I went in, where a lot of smaller agencies start the opposite. They're personal lines and they try and find access to commercial lines. I went the opposite way, which, go figure. I mean, I was already doing it the hard way, might as well do it harder. And so that's why we ended up joining in that. And I think that was a good opportunity for me to start to recognize the strength of large numbers and the strength of networking with other agencies to talk about how to improve your agency as well as the industry. Because I feel like that's a critical part to success of anyone, is to leave a mark on your industry. If you improve that, then you're doing good work and you're creating a successful environment for yourself and your own team.
Yeah. Yeah. How were you, how were you marketing early on? What type of business were you writing?
So, I did the old school, just knock on doors.
Yeah.
And in the commercial world, that was more common back then. I mean, I don't know if I don't think I would have been successful if I would have tried personal lines. I don't know that I had the grit that it would take to do that side of it, because I think the focus is different. I felt like I was accomplishing something just by driving around and knocking on doors in and of itself. And so even though maybe I wasn't really successful in creating a lot of opportunities, they slowly built, but I felt like I was doing something because I was out knocking on doors, trying to create opportunities. And so I tried to find a couple markets that were good for me. I landed on hospitality, restaurant, bars, especially, liquor-based operations, and found some success there. And so I focused on building a niche in that market and became fairly successful at it, which kind of allowed me to segue into other opportunities that I created along the way. I do some consulting work for the restaurant bar industry as well, because of the experiences I've had, and that's allowed me to build a network of opportunities that kind of feed each other. And that's one of the ways that I've been able to survive in the early years of trying to build an agency.
Okay. So, when did you start trying to build a team, add that first staff, and how was that hiring your first couple of employees?
It was challenging. I had early on an opportunity to hire a CSR, and I didn't really have the revenue to support it in the beginning. So I was constantly chasing, which didn't create a real positive environment for the person that I was working with. And we ended up having to part ways just because there wasn't the resources there to support what I was doing. And then it forced me to start looking at how to build the foundation for the agency to allow for that type of growth. And then once I started to get in a better position where I was able to do that, then it was just a warm body mentality. Like, I needed to get someone in here. Let's find someone. Let's see if I can get someone to help me sell. Let's see me. And so I just started trying to push people into these roles. And along the way, I've worked with some really, really talented and creative people, but the fit wasn't right because I didn't have the foundation strengthened, nor did I have the culture necessary to build a team. And so I had a few people come and go throughout in and out of the office that I think were extremely talented, but were probably meant for something better than what I was offering at that time. And little by little, I was able to start solidifying an opportunity that would lend favorable to someone else looking for a long-term opportunity in the industry. So it just took some time to create an environment that was conducive to working as a team, having the tools necessary to be successful, and me having the time necessary to actually train, groom, and work collectively with the team to ensure that they were going to find success.
Yeah. It's so hard, isn't it? I mean, when I look back to my my first hire and how to train, I didn't know how to train someone. Other than that, I had her sit right next to me, and it was I answer every darn question that there was available. And at that time, I don't know if Loom was even out, or or there was
Oh God.
another thing. So and again, I know we talked a little bit before about I didn't do enough to educate myself on, well, what's a good practice to train somebody in, or where do you start? So I think a lot of us go through those growing pains of learning every aspect along the way. But so I think eventually you got to figure it out. Now you're up to 10 team members, which is a pretty big group.
Yeah, and we're comfortable with each other. I mean, we have a great team, and
Yeah,
I think that I've been really, really fortunate that one, they've had the patience and desire to grow with
yeah,
the mentality and mission and vision of what we were trying to create. And that was critical because some of the some of the team is still newer. Most of them have been here at least a year, but some we have one that's 9, and I think one that's just close to 10.
yeah,
So there's the variety of that, and they've seen a lot of change. And as we go through, as we're building an agency, we're also going through our own personal trials and tribulations that can kind of spill over into the agency. So they have to believe that you're keeping things on track, and sometimes you're not, and sometimes your team's going to call you out and say, hey, where are we going? And
yeah,
that's so important that they feel comfortable so they can do that, because otherwise the answer is, I don't know where we're going, maybe I should leave. And I've
yeah,
had some of that. I've lost a couple probably really good people because I probably didn't have my vision clear, or if I had a clear vision, I probably didn't communicate it well enough to them so they understood where we were trying to get to, so that they felt that they had a place long term. And so those are the failings that you unfortunately you don't figure out until you've stumbled
yeah,
and made an error, because I don't know that I can warn you how to look for that other than just keep communicating. Communicate as much as
yeah,
possible and explain exactly what you're trying to do on a regular basis.
yeah. You've had a couple that have been with you for 9, 10 years. How do you think they would say that you changed over the course of that time?
To be honest, I think that the biggest thing they would probably say is I became more consistent in my communication with them.
Mm,
As your role changes, I know one of the biggest struggles of my team is I'm out a lot.
mm,
I'm because I served on the state association and worked through the leadership of in those roles, and I've gone to a number of national conferences and done some speaking opportunities and other personal travel. They had to figure out how to engage with me while I'm in and out of the office. On top of it, I deal with commercial clients, and most of that is done at
yeah,
their location, not at our location. So that's one of the things that they struggled with. So I had to get better, and I'm still trying to work on this, but I had to get better with how to communicate with them in an effective manner so that they knew what we were trying to accomplish, or they felt like they could move forward because they got to me and got the information they were looking for, so they could take the next step in whatever their process. And so I think that that's better. I don't know that I've gotten that figured out, but that's where I think maybe, or I hope to feel that that's where they would say the most growth has come, because
mm,
our communications are stronger and more open.
yeah. Yeah, that's something I've worked on and been intentional and to over communicate, even the silliest things. And we use Slack, to communicate. And I
Yeah.
just I try to be as transparent as possible with where I'm at, where I'm going to be back, little things. How would you say you've evolved as a leader, over the last 20 years?
I think that in the beginning, I lacked a clear understanding of the industry and had, in some respects, unrealistic expectations of where I could take it. And so, one is I started to become grounded in an understanding of what the industry was, and then could figure out what my capabilities and capacity were. And I think that's changed. My capacity now is far greater than my capacity then. The problem is my expectations are less now. I'm not trying to build something huge. I want to build something solid. Where
Yeah,
before I
like it.
lacked the capacity for something huge, but that's what I thought I wanted. I thought maybe I wanted this 50 to 100 person agency and we were going to conquer the world. And like, well, I don't know that that necessarily was going to be the right thing for me, but I lacked enough understanding of the industry to realize that one, that would be very hard to do, and two, that might not be what I really wanted. I
Yeah,
thought I did. So now I understand what I really wanted. To me, it's the culture in the agency that's so critical, that my team recognizes that they're valued, that their personal time is as valuable as their work time, and that we are going to try and grow together slowly with a plan in mind instead of just this random growth with these high expectations and this churn in the industry that we see, with the gobbling up of other agencies and just sell, 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 sell. I understand that you can make a lot of money in this industry, but that's not long. That's no longer my ultimate
yeah,
goal. My ultimate goal is to build something that's solid that people feel good about being part of.
yeah. Talk a little bit about what you do with your. I think you do some unique things with your team. I know you spoke before about having a flex schedule, and I think you do some unique things with your group, which it's employee friendly. So
You know, um, One of the things I learned early on is I wanted to have that kind of flexibility in my life, and that's why I went to work for myself. And the role that I created allowed for some flexibility. Yet in the beginning, I felt like I was too rigid with the expectations that others didn't have to adhere. That others had to adhere to a
yeah,
less flexible um, schedule. And at some point there was an epiphany. It's like, how do I expect them to adhere to when I don't? So I wanted to create an environment that allowed for some flexibility, but also had guardrails on what our expectations were for the work that needed to be done. So, for example, our office opens at 8:30, and it opens to customers at 9. And I expect you to be in the office between 8:30 and 9. And when I mean 9, you're at your desk ready to work, not walking in at 9. And since I created that half hour window for people to come and go, or start their job, I no longer pay attention to what time people are coming in. So I don't have to feel like I'm darting their hours. You were late today. Why were you late? And all this other stuff. And they have been on time and at their job almost all the time. So I gave them flexibility to recognize that sometimes it's hard getting your kids off to school. Sometimes traffic is worse than you thought it was. Sometimes you have to stop at the store or the pharmacy or something on the way to work. And that throws your schedule off. Knowing that you have a little bit of flexibility takes away the stress so you can come into the office ready to work instead of flying in with all this chaos. Because I don't think that if you're flying in on time but full of negative energy, you're not any more efficient than if you would have been 15
right,
minutes late and not worried about it.
right,
So that's one of the little things that we did that made a difference. And the other thing is, um, if you need time off, I want people to take time off. I've explained
yeah,
to them, I don't need to know why. You don't have to, in the middle of the week, if you decide you want a half day, you don't explain that, this is available. I don't care if you have a doctor appointment or you're going to ride your bike. Take the time off. Are you doing your job? Or we'll talk about if you're not meeting the expectations of the role on a separate conversation. You still have the right to your own personal time and space,
yeah,
and I don't need to know what it's about. Now, if you care to share with me, obviously we'll have the conversation. But ultimately, I'm not going to grill you on, well, what are you doing? What time are you going to do that? Who are you going with? Like, I'm not your parent.
yeah.
We're coworkers, and I'll cover your slack. Hopefully, you'll cover mine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's huge. I think, and that's so impactful. To those things are so impactful to our team. Just that little extra, and it's a little extra trust,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And it's a little extra control. Um, I want our group, I want them to take breaks and get away from their desk. And I learned that I just started saying, okay, hey, 2 o'clock, everybody get away from your desk. If you're gonna take a break, that's fine, but I need you to stretch your legs and get out and move. And just that little bit of sometimes, I find with our group, I find I have to do that a little bit is to give a little bit of nudge and to say, we're gonna do this. Well, they loved it.
Yeah.
It was a break in the day.
Yeah.
Like you should be doing this every day. You don't need to wait for me to tell you to do it, but it's also a little bit just showing that we care.
All right, Brad, I think that what you hit on there is a critical point of creating a team dynamic that you don't even realize how you can foster those relationships just by simply giving them that time. We started doing the 2 o'clock walk. Oh gosh, I want to say it might be going on 8 years now.
Wow.
And at 2 o'clock, everybody, if they want to, I mean, we'll literally close the door or close the office, lock the door, or some of the team goes and they take a 15-minute walk. I want them away from their computer. I want them standing up out of their desk. I want them to just take a break. They come back refreshed and they work a little bit better. But during that walk, they have a lot of personal conversations. They build unity in a way that makes them better teammates. And I never really paid attention to that. I was thinking, this is healthy for you, and this is why I want you to do it. This was a collateral benefit that far exceeded the value of the health side of going for a walk and getting away from your computer screen. And that's still important, but it was like, wow, this is really, really cool. And then I need to be better because I don't always take those walks. My schedule doesn't always afford for that because I have a lot of meetings that for whatever reason are set like at 2 o'clock. Like ours was today, 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
But man, I missed our walk today, but I want to be more intentional to go with the team. But sometimes I think it's good for the team just to do that without me.
Correct.
I think the conversations are different without me.
Correct.
And they build a unity and they build camaraderie through this process that I couldn't have created in any other real way. Everything else would have been forced. This was just built on its own. So it's a real cool thing. So if you're doing that, try and make it part of your routine on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And, if you can, which I wish I would have done more, lead the way.
I love that. You do that every day?
Every day.
I love it.
2 o'clock. If you call me at 2 o'clock, you're going to get me because the rest of the team is probably on a walk.
2 o'clock walk. I like it.
There you go.
I love it. All right. I'm using that. I want to touch on this a little bit. Is you have a COO on your team?
Yes.
When did you hire her and what does she do for your agency?
So I originally hired her. This is Carly in our office, and she is such a critical role to the success of the agency. I originally hired her as an assistant to me.
Yeah.
And I found her by luck, and she had a graphic design background. So that's what she went to school for. So not only did I get someone who could assist me with some of the administrative stuff that I wanted, but I also got someone who had a creative background that allowed for us to do a lot of things in a house that most agencies can't do. And she's been here now 9 years, I believe. Wow. And she has just grown as an integral part of the agency because she is involved in so much. She's not licensed. She doesn't sell, but she supports every salesperson. She's not licensed, so she doesn't service, but she supports every service person. And little by little, she grew into a role that said, this is the person that they should be going to because I'm not always available. So she addresses time off. She addresses vacation schedules. She addresses technology issues. She addresses, and she's so good at it. And she's learning to be the leader that she needs to be because that's a hard role, especially when you started in an administrative position and now you're in a leadership position. And it's, and it's the nice thing is the team is really kind of rallied around her to support her in this role. But you have your challenges, and she and I are real closely aligned in how we see the vision of the agency, but not always. So if she challenges me, I have to either adjust my vision or I have to bring her into the fold, one or the other. But at least we have two people that are trying to push and grow the agency. And it also allows me to step away from some of the day-to-day so I can focus on sales related things, which I think is important, and work on, instead of in the industry or in the agency, on the agency, as well as continue to hopefully do some selling because I really still love selling.
I think that's just huge. I don't have an operations person, although I have a meeting set up for next month to look at it because that's something I think I sorely need.
Yeah,
And
once you get it, your life is changed in so many ways. Yes, obviously you have to part with some financial resources to make it happen. But Brad, if I could convince you to do it, I would say do it.
yeah, yeah, I don't, it's like I said, I just think it's necessary. How are you spending most of your time now?
Doing a variety of things. So I want to try and make sure that I'm engaging with the sales team as much as possible to give some of my sales acumen to them, and make sure that I'm paying attention to the changes in the industry, the technology changes, so that we can all work together. And I really want to look and make sure that as we built the foundation, is the framework there that's going to support the revenue size agency that I'm trying to build. So I'm looking at a lot of our um, operations. I'm looking at a lot of our technology. I'm making sure
Yeah,
that these things are all clicking together in the right manner, and that they're scalable in a manner that allows us to hit the next level. I'm talking to a lot of people outside the agency to ensure that I get an understanding of maybe their operations, to see if maybe there's bits and pieces we can take to bring into our agency to improve ourselves. And so I'm spending a lot of time right now working on the agency.
yeah,
And that's been hard for me to some degree, because I do feel like I'm slipping in certain areas that I have to then go back to. But I do recognize that once this part is done and it's stable, I can then step away from some of that and allow some of it to go on cruise control, especially like the technology as it goes, and assign other people to monitor and make sure that nothing goes off the rails, and then allow me to get back to a one-on-one engagement with our staffs and our salespeople, and then also allow me to continue to sell. Because again, like I said earlier, it's one of the parts I really really enjoy. I love that part of the interaction with the customers, the clients, and just being out in the field and seeking out opportunities. I love the hunt, I guess.
I'm the same way, exactly the same way. In fact, I've kind of worked myself out of, most all those jobs, and which then I found myself with some available time, which, so I've actually kind of working back into a little bit, some production because I enjoy it. Like I said, I
Good.
enjoy the hunt of it, and and which is really why I need that COO to kind of solidify everything else, and I can really get out there. But it's a real fine line, because if I get myself into too much production, then it affects, what I'm trying to do to work on the business, which is the ultimate goal. So I'm just I think I'm just kind of a glutton for punishment, for a lot of things. Like you always, maybe bite off a little more than you should be chewing, but that's just
I
the
think
way.
that's the entrepreneurial spirit in many
Yeah,
of us. We want to attack things and grab big, challenging goals, and then see if we can tackle them. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be a struggle at times, especially if we do too many at the same time, which I've been apt to do on
yeah,
occasion.
yeah, me too. Let's pivot a little bit to some of your. I want to get into a little bit of your business coaching. Tell me how long you've been doing that, and what that kind of looks like. What's the AHA program?
So I started doing business coaching many years ago, and this was really not specific to any industry. Um, what I found, because I'm a commercial agent, I'm dealing with a lot of business owners, and my experience is business owners are good at their trade.
Yeah,
If they're a plumber, they understand plumbing. They don't know how to run a business. If they're a baker, they know how to bake. They don't know how to run a business. And all I did was, in many ways, push paperwork for a living. So most of the business frustrations they had were administrative in nature, and things that were normal for us as insurance people, because we have to move things through a process. And so most of the things they would deal with were process driven, which they didn't have time for, because once they recognized there was a process that looked hard, they jump into plumbing or baking instead of focusing on that. And so I started trying to help with those kind of
mm,
things, and gave me some opportunities to help some small businesses. And then we started doing a little bit more startups and a couple turnarounds and rebranding, and so we got to do a lot of those things. And then little by little, as my insurance agency knowledge increased and strengthened, and my understanding of how to build that business became more solidified, I then started trying to help other agencies and work with them to help them get past some of their frustrations. And sometimes it was just a matter of they just needed someone to talk to. They needed someone to talk to that actually understood what they were saying and their frustrations. Quite often they'd fix their own problems. And that was great. So having those conversations allowed me to recognize too that we're not alone in these things. Most of the complications we dealt with are complications other people have dealt with. Maybe not exactly, but similar. And so you can gain a lot of knowledge by talking to a lot of different agencies. Well, I have friends and networks that are spread through all throughout the U.S. And that's allowed me to gain a greater understanding of how I can support someone who's going through a struggle. And then I started to try and push it out as much as possible. So I do weekly calls with some agents on a one-on-one basis. And then I've been doing a bi-weekly call with a lot of people in the SIA network to try and help them as they're, especially some of the smaller personalized agencies that are trying to build into the commercial market. Well, all I did was commercial. So I tend to be a little bit more knowledgeable about commercial, especially that small to complex, but not middle market. I'm not a middle market expert. There's other people out there that I think are more proficient at that. Yes, I feel comfortable. I could probably do it, but it's not something I pursued. So I'd rather not try and train people in an area that is not my operational experience. There's other people out there who do that, but anything in between that, like, a little bit more complex than your BOP, your Main Street type stuff, and less than your middle market is where I excel.
Yeah. So, which, and you mentioned, plumbers know how to be plumbers, bakers know how to be bakers. I throw us in the same category as far as insurance agents. Most of us came up as producers, and that's what we know how to be. And what's really evolved is that, but we don't, although, we might be a little more proficient at some paperwork, but in terms of how to be a business owner, no, we don't generally, most of us don't know anymore. We don't know about, hiring and, well, shoot, am I taking Christmas Eve off, or, making all these other decisions,
Right.
that are all of a sudden thrown on us when we build a team. So it's, there's so many more resources, available now.
Oh, yes.
On how to do it, but some, and there's not, one playbook fits all, but it's kind of the same thing of learning to be a business owner. And as far as, where my evolution came was just working on myself, reading books. And then when I really started connecting with others in the industry, then I really started to grow, because like you alluded to, you take a little bit from each one.
Oh yeah.
And what works for Don might not work for me, but I can kind of take what I want and leave the rest. And
absolutely, I think that's great.
Yeah.
It's just to tie into that.
Yeah.
We have to learn how to be good agents. We have to learn how to be good agency owners, and we have to learn how to be good business owners. Yeah. And I don't think agency owner and business owner are the same thing. Yeah, they kind of are the same, but not exactly. So that's why I feel like it's even harder sometimes for us to get an agency started, is because there's three pieces to it that you have to become proficient at. And so when you have these scratch agencies, small startups that are just trying to figure it out and they're on their own, I pour into them as much as I can, because I know how hard that was. And we need more successful agencies in the independent section of things. So, we need more of that. And so I want to help create those opportunities and push on as much as possible, because we're losing a lot of our institutional knowledge as people are aging out and deciding they want to go into retirement and try and relax a little bit more. And so we need to make sure that we're bringing up people and then making sure that they're educated in the industry. So, if your job should be to become a better agent, which then makes a better agency, and the better agencies should make a better industry. Those two things are critical to the long-term success of our industry.
Yeah. Well put. Tell me about your Want Better, Be Better. I've seen a little bit of it. I did watch one of your videos last week on LinkedIn. I think you were just done running, and it must have been cold out, because I could see your breath. It was pretty good. But tell me about that initiative.
So, this was one of those intentional things. I wanted to spend more time pushing out some positive energy. I wanted to do a little bit more of practice on working on some videos. And I've been talking about Want Better, Be Better for so long that it just came out natural when I started doing the first couple of videos. And now I've been doing them for a couple months in a row. And every day I try and hit some aspect of motivation, success, etc., that I personally either struggled with or personally supported other people that have struggled, and just give them a little snippet of what I'm thinking. And it really comes down to is, if you want a better life, you need to be a better person. If you want a better agency, you need to be a better agent. I mean, it's not a complex thought process, but it's an intentionality and mindset that I like to talk about. And it's kind of grown in a way that I didn't expect, because I've had a lot of people contact me and communicate with me in all different aspects, either personal or during the, on the social media comments or whatever. But it's most of the personal um, uh, communications that have been the most impactful, because people are saying, man, I was really struggling at the moment, and that video hit hard for me. And that is, so powerful for me, because like, okay, so one, it incentivizes me to do it, but two, it's a reminder that our words are so important and so critical, and we need to be careful with how we use them. And we need to be intentional to push out positive energy, because it could be the difference between someone just giving up or someone saying, I can press on. Because we've all had those moments where we just feel like, I can't do this anymore. And then you hear someone else say, yeah, but you can. And this is why. It's hard. Yes, but you can do hard things. I talk about that a lot. We are meant to do hard things. And so the want better, be better kind of concept has just kind of grown on its own and built into something a little bit bigger than what I expected. But it's been really cool.
So as we were talking about a little bit before, I mean, and you committed to doing one of these a day,
yes.
right? Which doesn't sound like a lot. Might not sound like a lot to someone who hasn't done it, but when you commit yourself to doing that, you don't always feel like it at that time, but you know that or maybe you just don't have the thoughts at that time. But because you committed, you force yourself to do it. And sometimes just being real about it. Even,
Yes.
I had a day yesterday. You and I talked a little bit about our fitness and how we're very consistent with it. It's part of our lives. Yesterday I had a day. I didn't have it. My body was beat. I thought I might be getting sick, but I got up and, and I got my workout in, and I didn't feel better afterwards, but I got it done. That's part of the discipline. I think sometimes, now I didn't make a video of it, but you could, I mean, as that could be what you're saying for those that are, looking to do that, to say, I didn't have it today, but I pushed myself, I got up, and you can too, whatever your message is. Talk about some of the disciplines that you put yourself through, whether, you told me about your running, which is great, amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit. First, I'll talk about the discipline of the video, because I think that's important.
The video, yes.
And then I'll jump into other. One is the commitment to do it. You're absolutely right. Finding the time, finding the energy, and finding the content is a challenge at times. But I've been fortunate that as I go through my daily routine, something sparks. I'm like, I can speak about this. I could speak about that. If you watch enough of them, you'll see that they're not polished. Right. They're definitely not professional. I don't edit. I just basically say, if I stumble through it, I stumble through it. And I'm not taking, like on occasion there's more than one take, but most of the time it's one take and done, because it's not really about trying to create this professional, polished message. It's about being real. This is what I'm thinking right now. And I want to share that, because I think that if I'm thinking, other people are thinking. And I think us sharing our struggles, our trials, are just important as sharing our successes. And Facebook and other social media shouldn't always be about, look what I accomplished. Sometimes it should be about, this is a struggle I'm going through. And sometimes I just showed up, and that was enough. I showed up. And I'm sure some of those videos probably sound like I showed up. And then others probably sound like, wow, this guy really has it together. Yeah, I don't. I'm just, I'm winging it every single day. But
while you're on that, where can we find these? You push this out to all the social media platforms, or?
Yes. Yeah. So if you're connected with me on Facebook, Donald Shampine on Facebook, that's fine. Otherwise, it's Want Better, Be Better on TikTok, Want Better, Be Better on Instagram, Want Better, Be Better has its own Facebook, Want Better, Be Better on YouTube. I've been most consistent on pushing them onto TikTok, because it's been the easiest platform in which to put the information, not because I have a preference to one of the platforms or another, but those are probably where you'll get most of the videos. And if you're interested in hearing more, I've also had a couple that someone said, hey, could you say something about this? And I've done specifically to respond to someone else's, I'm struggling with this. Could you talk about that? Great. I'll be happy to do that. And so if you ever have an idea like, man, I'd love to say it, but I'm lacking the words right now,
Mm.
shoot it over and I'll wing it. I'll try and figure something
And you
out.
probably love that for an idea.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's so helpful. I didn't think about that. Thank you. I'm going to do that tomorrow.
Like,
and then talk about the other part of discipline is what, I've always talked about motivation. Discipline trumps motivation. Motivation is fleeting.
yeah.
It's an emotional place in your life. Discipline is routine. It's what you're going to do every day. And you need to figure that out. And so I've tried to be very disciplined and set hard goals for myself. So as we talked earlier, right now, I'm not a runner. I do run. I'm not a passionate person. My wife is a passionate runner. She loves to run. She loves to talk about it. She has friends that are all runners and everything like that. And I'm more of a chaser. She runs, I chase her. So that's the way it works. And she's faster than me, so it's actually true. But part of that is I run because I know it's important for me to stay healthy. Part of it is I want to run so I can spend some time with her. And part of it is I love to eat. So I need to make sure I'm burning calories because I want to run, or I want to eat. So I need to run. So, but the discipline of saying I'm going to do this every day, even though I don't like it, is the hard part. And that's what I want people to recognize is you can do hard things. You don't have to love what you're doing. You just have to be willing to love the outcome more than you love the activity. And loving the outcome is how you're going to feel when you're done with your workout. And I've yet to leave a workout, other than maybe if I got injured, I've yet to leave a workout and regretted it. I've never gone from, I shouldn't have run today, or I shouldn't have done that workout, or I shouldn't have attempted this, because I feel good afterwards. And it's great way to start your day. I love feeling like I got something accomplished and it's still pretty early. And now I'm going to attack my work day. And then I'm going to get home and I can just be with my family and not say, now I have to do my workout. And so it doesn't interrupt my evenings. I know that each person's different, figure it out, but that's how it's worked for me.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about setting a goal. I forgot how you said it now. Setting a goal that might not be attainable, or how did you put that earlier?
Right. So I think it is important for us to set hard goals for ourselves.
Yeah.
And you should set goals that you have a reasonable chance at failure. So it shouldn't be so hard that you're guaranteed to fail, but it shouldn't be so easy that you're guaranteed to be successful. You have to find a goal that it's like, man, it's going to be hard. I'll do this, but it's going to be hard. Because if it's easy, you're not going to feel a sense of accomplishment. You're not really going to get anywhere. But I feel that if you set yourself up for success and failure and you work through things, you're going to build some confidence and you're going to build some strength and you're going to build some personal attributes that are going to serve you well when hard things come into your life that you weren't prepared for. When you're doing these things on a regular basis and challenging yourself because you chose to, and then life throws something at you that you weren't prepared for, you're going to be more ready than you ever could have been because you already know you can do hard things. You've already accomplished hard things.
Well, it's part of it, right? It's not just the physical aspect; it's the mental.
Oh, it's so much of the mental.
We need
so much of the mental.
So I think it's huge. I really like that. Last thing before I let you go today is what areas would you like to see Michigan Insurance Group improve on in 2024?
I think that we've been fortunate to be a technology-driven agency. We embrace technology. We're not at the cutting edge. We're not at the trailing end. We're closer to the front of it. And so we've been talking a lot about AI and how that can play, and a lot about videos and how we can utilize them in our interactions with customers. I really want to see us push to utilize these new tools that are being used on a regular basis by some agencies and make sure that we're putting them to best use in 2024. I have some significant goals for myself and for our team, and I want to make sure we're hitting them. Part of hitting them is making sure that we're using our time well. Part of using our time well is making sure that we have all the tools necessary to be successful and they're all pushing in the right direction. But what I won't do is I won't slow down our process, because I don't like the idea of making a perfect solution. Perfection is the enemy of progress. We are going to progress one way or the other. We're going to attack these things one way or the other, but slowly but surely, we're going to try and perfect it as we go. We'll see how that works out.
Yeah. That's a really good one. That's something we've been fine tuning actually a lot this year, is getting all of our systems to speak to each other as much as possible.
Yes.
And taking advantage of what our systems can actually do. It's been a massive goal. I love the idea of incorporating some AI into it. I really haven't done that into any of my systems, but that's a good one for 2024. Let me ask you this. How how is your group with technology? Are they adapting to it? Are they utilizing to it? Do they have a choice? You know.
No, I think that we have a couple early adopters and a couple skeptics in the
Yeah.
group, and I think that that mix has been great because it challenges us to look at the obstacles we might face and then how do we overcome them, and it also makes sure that we're trying it and recognizing that trial and failure is okay because we don't have to have it figured out, and
No.
it's not like we're doing surgery here, so no one's going to die on the table if we try a technology and it's not perfect,
Yeah.
but it's allowing us to push forward in an area that maybe not everyone's comfortable about. And so I think we have the whole spectrum of I love technology too. I hate technology, but everyone is definitely embracing and trying things, and we're doing it from a team standpoint and having
Yeah.
good communications about it, so that we start to the more skeptical ones are starting to embrace that. Wow, this could be
Yeah.
easier and this could be
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. All right, man. This has been. I appreciate the time. This has been
Yeah,
great.
absolutely, Brad.
Great.
This has been great.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. I picked up some great things myself, so I know everybody else is as well. Everyone else, thank you for listening to another episode of the Agents to Owners podcast. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.